So next up, we're going to be checking out the history of Fodlan, the Fire Emblem Three Houses. I've known a bit about this because about a year ago, I deep dive a lot of this game because the song God Shattering Star was just like so cool. I don't know why, I just started getting into all my playlists and it was like, oh, I should learn about the game that made this. One deep dive later, I have terrible memory and I forgot everything. So let's find out what I missed. Probably a lot.
In the world of Fire Emblem, they say only a dragon's fang can pierce the thick, unyielding hide of another dragon. And so, the falchion was forged, created for one purpose.
Oh, this is the old Fire Emblem games. Or it's probably just more than one.
To put an end to the creeping madness said to consume all dragon lords in time. But what if that idea were turned on its head? What if the blade wasn't forged to quell the gods' madness, but to slay them outright? Not a beacon of hope for humanity, but a symbol of corruption and darkness.
Oh.
These are the heroes' relics of Fire Emblem Three Houses, wielded by the so-called elites.
Quick question. Why is the bow the relic when the arrow would be the one doing the damage? Oh, because magic, I don't have to answer anything. That's why.
And their royal descendants. Yet, rather than serving as medals of honor, they carry a much grimmer secret. Much of Fodlan's history is steeped in shadow, and it seems both the relics and the world of Fodlan itself will be returning in Fortune's Weave. While it's still unclear what role the relics will play, or even whether this new tale is a sequel or an alternate timeline.
Wait, what? I'm sorry, I thought Three Houses was done. Are they adding more to the story? What? Okay, this is news to me. How old is this video? 6 months, so no, it's not old either. Okay.
Now feels like the perfect time to look back on the world that started it all. Whether you're here for a refresher on Three Houses' history, curious about the events that shaped the world before the game began, or simply intrigued by the relics themselves, join me as we uncover the history of Fodlan.
Okay, so this is basically setting up so you know what's happening before a new game. And just to quote Bill in the chat, this is a Markiplier would say, a solid maybe. Okay, news to me.
The story...
Also, the new game, according to Iron, is Fortune's Weave will take place in the same universe. And according to Cosmic, it is related. We just don't know how. And we are DLC and 2 games and a crossover. Wait, there was a crossover?
Of the goddess, and of those who slither in the dark.
He looks trustworthy. The ancient land of Agartha. Oh. Sorry, I know Agartha is more mythology-based IRL, but I have an instinctual Pavlovian trained reaction of utter despair and hatred for that word now, after what Fate Grand Order did with that. Oh.
Long, long ago, in the earliest history of the land we know now as Fodlan, long before even the rise of the Adrestian Empire, the goddess Sothis descended from the heavens. With her own blood, she gave life to her children, the Nabateans. Together they coexisted peacefully with the people who already lived upon the land, the Agarthans, whose territory was known then as Agartha. Sothis shared her vast knowledge with these people, and through
Did they happen to have an entire land that was just based on kink fetishes and badly written collections of why are we doing this? Because if they were, that'd be funny. It happened twice.
her guidance, civilization flourished. But in time, humanity grew arrogant and greedy, proclaiming themselves equal to the gods. The Agarthans turned against the Nabateans, waging war upon the children of the goddess. In her wrath, Sothis unleashed her divine power upon them, laying waste to their civilization and reducing their once great land to ruin. Those who survived the war fled beneath the surface, cursing Sothis, her children, and all those who worshipped her name. The surface world, scorched and broken by divine judgment, was left in desolation. Saddened by the devastation she had caused, Sothis used the last of her power to restore the land, and then fell into a deep slumber within the holy tomb. The Agarthans, now hidden deep below Fodlan, came to be known as those who slither in the dark, while the
I'll be honest, this is the part of the story I didn't know nearly as much about. Like, I knew about the people down below, but every time I heard them described, it was mostly, they're just kind of those assholes you don't want to deal with. And every time they're on screen, it's like, yeah, if they were shot right now, it'd improve the story.
goddess slept in the tomb at Xanadu. A foreign army invaded the surface. Among those who resisted them was a powerful bandit named Nemesis, who sought to liberate his people from the invaders. And it was then that those who slither made their first move. They approached Nemesis, whispering that he could indeed free his people if he were to wield the power of the goddess herself. As Sothis slept within the holy tomb, Nemesis crept inside and killed the goddess. He brought her remains to those who slither in the dark, and together they began forging a weapon, one that would become the instrument of her children's slaughter. From her body they tore her spine and heart, using them to create the blade and its creststone.
Oh, they're actually made from dead god body. You know, that should sound weird, but at this point, I just think, oh yeah, JRPG, got it.
Thus, the sword of the creator was born. Nemesis drank the goddess's blood, and from that blasphemous act, a mark appeared upon his body, the crest of flames. Under instruction of those who slither, and empowered by stolen divinity, Nemesis ventured to Xanadu once again, and massacred the Nabateans, murdering nearly all of Sothis's children. Those who slither used the corpses of the fallen to forge the remaining heroes' relics, grotesque weapons crafted from divine remains. Nemesis' band of thieves was given these relics, and like their leader, they too drank the blood of the goddess's children, gaining crests of their own, yet they were ignorant of the true origin of their newfound power. They never learned the truth of what happened that day in Xanadu, now known as the Red Canyon, named for the Nabatean blood that drenched its soil. Some of them didn't survive long after ingesting the blood. One among them, Maurice, whose crest would later be known as the Crest of the Beast, overtaxed his power, transforming into a monstrous demonic creature.
Oh, that's the guy they're talking about, isn't it? Oh, okay, so drinking god blood has side effects. Who would have thought? And Croc, you said it's the Crest of Flames. You could even call it a fire emblem. Nah, that'd be too on the nose.
Whether this occurred before, during, or after the coming war remains uncertain. In time,
What were those
Nemesis
from?
rallied his forces and expelled the foreign invaders that once threatened the land. He was hailed as a hero, and came to be known as the King of Liberation. Around this time, near what is now the city of Enbar, one of the goddess's surviving children, Seiros, began traveling across Fodlan, determined to rally an army to oppose Nemesis. She gathered the remaining Nabateans who had survived the massacre at Xanadu: Sethlin, Keyhole, Indek, and Macuil. Together, they became known as the Four Saints, and they pledged their support to Seiros in the...
Oh, I'm assuming it's the non-dragon form and the dragon forms. Or is it just separate dragons who never took human form? Wait, Cosmic, wait until you hear how it's pitched in Engage. Oh god, is it even more on the nose? Is this the subtle version? Kinda want to hear that. That actually sounds fun.
coming war. In Enbar, Seiros met Wilhelm Paul Hresvelg,
That's a
with
name.
whom she forged an alliance. As a sign of trust, she bestowed upon him her own blood, granting him the crest of Seiros. With the
like a
combined
leaf.
strength of Seiros, the Four Saints, and Wilhelm's forces, the Adrestian Empire was founded. They rallied their armies and marched to confront Nemesis and his 10 elites in what would become known as the War of Heroes.
Tell me, Nemesis, do you recall the Red Canyon? You'll die in it! Die Die! You took everything that I loved!
And everyone just stands around watching. What is it with entire big climactic fights where there's two massive armies and it's just the two generals fighting in the middle? I've seen it happen in multiple franchises and I just don't get it because it just seems like because it's a cinematic set piece, you don't have to animate everything else that is a distraction from what you want the people to focus on. Yep, just answer my own question.
After the war's end, Nemesis and his elites were defeated, and the Adrestian Empire claimed dominion over all of Fodlan. The Church of Seiros, which had been established prior to the war, soon rose to even greater prominence, guiding the faith, history, and destiny of the continent.
You know, this is a way more fucked up image now that I know exactly what that is. It doesn't look like bone. It is her mom's or ancestors, gods, whatever, spine. Yeah, that's all kinds of fucked up.
Continent for centuries to come.
Also, according to Irons, because her side won already, it's only her forces. Oh. Something to consider. In Verdant Wind, Rhea states that Nemesis snuck in and stole the remains of Sothis. This implies that she was already dead by the time he arrived. Oh, honestly, that is actually a lot less fucked up. Huh. For the record, she's the bad guy in this story. Is she? Like, I thought her entire shtick was making sure everyone else, like, getting someone who could beat her. Like, that's your character's entire point, is replacement. Like, I know she's the villain, but she always felt like the villain who wasn't evil, but also definitely fucked up. It's been a while. I remember thinking she's a villain where she's definitely wrong, but like not horrible, but definitely wrong by what she did, which is horrible. It's been too long since I remember. Need to look at everything. Oh. Huh. I didn't know they had adult art of her. Like, I saw the kid version, which oddly enough had less, that has more hair. Something to consider. If she were already dead for some time, however, would her blood not have evaporated by then, or at least coagulated? Yeah, but also, god magic, I don't have to explain shit. And her in the adult form is very different. Huh. Deeper colored hair, too. Did I hit play? I hit play. There's still plenty we don't know about the Nabateans. Their power, their blood of ancient Fodlan. We simply don't have all the details, unfortunately. Mysteries upon mysteries. And to quote Cosmic, basically the society she brought about is directly the cause of the events of the game. Yep. That part I do remember.
Despite the deaths of Nemesis and his 10 elites, the families of those warriors were spared. These bloodlines would go on to become some of the most influential leaders across the Empire. None of them appear to have had a direct familial connection to Nemesis himself, and whether he left behind descendants of his own remains unknown. Before moving further past the War of Heroes, let's take a moment to talk about the 10, or rather 11 if we include Maurice, elites who served
dragon
under Nemesis, their individual heroes' relics, and the symbolism and mythological inspiration behind them. Each of these elites bore a crest, carved into their very flesh and blood, a mark that would define
him with white eyes. That's different.
Their lineage for generations.
And according to Cosmic, Fodlan became a feudal hellhole. Yep. That part I do remember.
To come. Blathid with Eredfar, Regan with Failnot, Lamine with the Raphael Gem, Goneril with Frykagil, Daphnel with Luin, Dominic with Crusher, Gautier with the Lance of Ruin, Fraldarius with the Aegis Shield, Gloucester with the Staff Thyrsus, Charon with Thunderbrand, and Maurice with Blue.
Okay, I just need to ask, this style of sword that comes up in a second.
Charon with
this, like, I've seen this style of sword, especially represented in Japanese storylines. Is it just meant that you only stab with this thing? Because it looks like it would be incredible. Because it's magic, probably. I don't have to explain shit. I really am overthinking this too much, don't I?
Thunderbrand, and Maurice with Blutgang. Each of these elites was eventually hunted down by Seiros and her army during the War of Heroes, slain and their relics confiscated, save Maurice. Not much is known about the elites themselves, though it's likely they were of Agarthan descent. Unlike Nemesis, they seem to lack full awareness of those who slither in the dark, or were at least ignorant of their deeper involvement in the events surrounding the Red Canyon. Now, let's talk about the symbolism behind each relic. Eredfar is a spear from Irish mythology, most notably associated with Lugh, the Celtic.
Oh, wait, they're actually based on IRL myths. Oh, okay. I was not expecting that. Granted, I don't know enough about Irish mythology just beyond knowing the name itself.
God of light. It was said to be so deadly that once drawn, it demanded blood. It could only be quenched by plunging its tip into water or blood. A fitting weapon for both the elites and Dimitri, who later wields it to enact his vengeance. Failnaught is a bow attributed to Sir Tristan in Arthurian legend, a weapon that never fails to hit its mark. It symbolizes clarity of vision, aligning perfectly with Claude's truth-seeking, forward-thinking nature. Raphael is derived from Raphael, the archangel associated with healing and protection. The Raphael gem grants defensive bonuses, symbolic of divine protection.
Who had that?
The Lamine bloodline's association with magic and purity ties strongly to angelic imagery, fitting for Mercedes. Freikugel translates to free bullet or magic bullet.
Okay, I need to ask, is that an axe or something else? I have no idea what that's supposed to be. Probably an axe. I think it's an axe. If someone tells me it's a fan, I'm going to believe him as well at this point.
Referencing the Freischütz legend in German folklore, a hunter who makes a pact with the devil for bullets that never miss.
Oh.
Power gain.
Okay, I've heard that storyline. I've also heard it more in more recent media where it's been used a lot, including, I think, a variation of it in Supernatural, of all things. Also, Croc mentioned the spines work like Swordbreaker. They didn't break swords, just help with the binding. Oh, because you could catch them if you miss and they just turn sideways to pull it out of someone's hand. So it's basically a counter weapon. Oh, okay, that kind of makes sense.
Through dark means fits perfectly with how the hero's relics were forged. It also amusingly suits Hilda's personality. If anyone would use a weapon that never misses just to save themselves the trouble, it's her.
I have played so many games where a 98, 99, or even 100% is still 99% guaranteed going to miss.
Luin, or Lugh's spear, is one of the 4 treasures of the Tuat De Danann. It was said to burn with magical energy so fierce it had to be submerged in water when not in use.
Huh.
The Daphnel family values grace and composure. Perfect match for a relic symbolizing divine power kept under control. The name Crusher may allude to Sancta Domina, or from Dominic, meaning...
I need to ask, are those horns or fingers? Because it looks like they have joints. I can't tell. I really can't tell.
Of the Lord. It represents holy destruction, faith weaponized. The relic's connection to faith and magic ties neatly to Annette's family, who have long served the Church of Seiros.
Huh.
The Lance of Ruin draws from both Celtic and Arthurian traditions. While not directly based on one weapon, it resembles the Lune of Chelchar, a fiery spear that had to be cooled in water lest it destroy everything around it.
That's the second Irish lance that need to be cooled in water. I wonder if it's actually like a theme or something. Or is one supposed to be based on the other? I mean, that's happened with plenty of famous weapons, so why not?
It's
and it is actually
for
a finger
Sylvain,
hammer,
who views his crest as a curse, much like the spear's own destructive nature. It's also very similar to the origins of Eredfar. The Aegis was the divine shield of Zeus, and later Athena, representing both protection and divine authority.
Huh.
Here, the same symbol of holy defense is twisted, tainted by the blood used to forge it. The Thyrsus was a staff carried by Dionysus and his followers.
Well, that could have a lot of implications, depending on which version of Dionysus they're going with.
Adorned with ivy or pine cones. It represents divine frenzy, ecstasy, and intoxication. Its magical qualities fits Lysithia's immense power, while the Dionysian symbolism connects well to Lorenz's flamboyant and noble persona. Charon in Greek mythology
There's a lot more you can say on that one.
was the ferryman of the dead, guiding the souls across the river Styx. Thunderbrand may draw from Mjolnir, Thor's hammer,
Really?
or from Bran, plus thunder. It embodies divine judgment and speed.
Honestly, I was expecting more of a Japanese reference here. Not Thor. Okay.
Striking like a bolt of heavenly wrath. The name Charon itself ties to death, perfectly fitting for Catherine's lightning-fast swordplay. Blutgang translates to blood path, or blood battle in Old German. In the Three-Jek Saga, a Norse epic, it's a sword wielded by heroes, often cursed. That curse mirrors Maurice's own fate, transformed into a beast by his relic's corruption, and symbolizes the ultimate price of bloodshed, divine power twisted into monstrosity. So there's quite a lot of Germanic influence, among other things, across these relics. The common thread that ties all of them together is how Three Houses takes these inspirations and twists them into something grim. These so-called divine relics weren't crafted by the god's will.
Oh, this is a disturbing animation. I'm assuming that's the guy who's being corrupted by the weapon.
But from the corpses of the goddess's own children.
Or dissolved.
At some point during the War of Heroes, more relic-like weapons were created.
Damn.
However, these weren't true heroes' relics. They were known instead as creststone weapons. Functionally, they acted much like the relics, channeling power through the use of creststones. Examples of these include the Vajramushti.
So, Rhea was there this entire time. She just saw a bunch of people with her kin's bones everywhere. How? Like, she's not exactly, forgiving or good at the entire not murder thing. Or maybe I'm just misremembering, but that's just kind of dark, man. Because a lot of people's like, oh, dragon bones. Cool. And she's looking like, hey, my uncle, why do you still have your head? Yeah. On Cosmic Mesh, it's something what happens when someone without a crest uses the weapons. Ah.
Brody, and the Fetters of Drami. Moving past the War of Heroes and the tragic legacy of the elites and their relics, the power of those bloodlines continued on. Generations later, the descendants of the 10 elites would still bear their crests, and their influence would shape the noble houses of Fodlan, leading up to the events of Three Houses. So, let's take some time and talk about the family lineages, specifically Blaiddyd, Regan, and the history of the Empire.
I do remember a bit more about Edelgard's entire thing. She's basically right, because everything they do is like in the right way. She just goes about doing the right thing in such a wrong way that it feels like she's the reverse of Rhea. I'm not sure if that was an intentional comparison either, because I don't think they meant her to look right at all when they were designing this storyline or her entire character. But this is something only because I've heard other commentary from people who worked on the game outside of the game itself. So it's entirely possible that they're just saying that to fuck with players for all I know. Which isn't always the case, but I've heard it happen. So, yeah. Actually, I'm just going to pull out your comment quickly when it eventually loads. And eventually loads is the correct choice here. So I'll start reading on the side when it catches up. So Cosmic mentioned, by the time of the game, if she did anything about the heroes' relics or copycats, it would have essentially exposed the church as being unfathomably corrupt. Yeah, but at the same time, I'm surprised they haven't found a workaround for that. Like, legitimately do not think... I mean, IRL churches were able to do a lot of shady shit and just say, that never happened, and people believed it. Or they knew better than not to believe it. Yeah. Also, Cosmic, basically, no, but apparently everyone on the game that worked on it went, hang on a second, Edelgard is completely correct. Yeah, but isn't it... I heard that that's the thing, though, but they had to add in her storyline as not one of the main ones, because you weren't actually supposed to side with her. But they added it in because, well, like you just said, she's right. Just going about it in a way that makes her almost completely wrong.
From Blaiddyd's family line came Lugh, the founder and first king of the Holy Kingdom of Fargus. In Imperial Year 747, long after the War of Heroes, he raised an army to demand independence for the Fargus region from the Empire. What followed was a full-scale rebellion that lasted 4 years. Lugh was aided by Kaifon, a descendant of Fraldarius, one of the 10 elites, and Pan, his trusted tactician. Interestingly, Kaifon's descendant, Felix, still maintains close ties to the royal family centuries later, showing just how deep this connection runs. But what's far more intriguing is Pan himself. He wasn't merely a skilled tactician. He was a member of those who slither in the dark. It's possible that those who slither sought to weaken and divide the Empire by fueling this rebellion. Classic divide and conquer tactic.
I mean, it does work.
Their goal of eradicating the Nabateans was never fulfilled after the War of Heroes, so their continued interference makes sense. You'll notice a recurring pattern throughout Fodlan's history. Wherever there's chaos or conflict, those who slither are never far behind, quietly stoking the flames of war. While everyone else focused on red versus blue, the kingdom versus the Empire and later the Alliance, a far more insidious force was manipulating events from the shadows.
Is it bad that I think the slithering ones, are just kind of a bad villain? Like, this might just be me, but I never got the like, it's like, oh yes, we're the secret corruptors. I'm like, okay, neat. Maybe that's just me. I didn't play the games. I've only listened to the lore and honestly been fascinated by it. But it always seems like they were probably meant to be the big villains, but they never felt like they raised to the level of earning it. Again, that could just be my interpretation.
They supplied Lugh with the weapons and resources needed to win the war, later known as the War of the Eagle and the Lion. In the aftermath, negotiations with the Church of Saros led to the formal recognition of Fargus' independence. On the 21st of the Red Wolf Moon, Imperial Year 751, the Holy Kingdom of Fargus was officially founded.
Also, I'm just going to pull it out because this is actually exactly what it's asking about. And Cosmic mentioned, the entirety of Three Houses, basically everyone has incomplete information, so things go down basically the worst possible route. See, that's the part I liked, because I loved how seeing the difference of information was people doing things that they thought was correct, and no one is really evil until they go too far working on incomplete information. Edelgard, I'm very much talking about Edelgard. Although the guy on screen right now very much is that as well. Although mostly just because I think... I don't really like his character. Mostly just the prince archetype he initially was, followed by the revenge-seeking priest he later... The revenge-seeking prince he later became. Also, just, I don't like the archetype, so I'm kind of inherently biased against it. And according to Iron, the Slither guy is the worst part of the game. Everyone agrees they're an absolute joke. Yeah, and they kind of suck, honestly. Okay, so it wasn't just me then. Maybe that's why they survived so long. Everyone who knew about them got annoyed.
The kingdom thrived, and many years later, King Lambert, father to Dimitri and close friend to Rodrigue, head of House Fraldarius, was born. Lambert wasn't an only child.
It's only a handful
he
of
had an elder
generations?
brother named Rufus. However, Rufus was not born with the crest of Blaethid, and as a result, the throne passed to Lambert. You can imagine how that must have felt. Despite this family tension, Lambert's reign was prosperous, and life under his rule was peaceful for most. He eventually married and had his son, but tragedy struck when a devastating plague swept through Fargus, claiming the life of his wife. Eventually, a mage named Cornelia arrived and miraculously cured the plague that had ravaged Fargus. In gratitude, the royal family welcomed her into their service. An imperial...
I was unaware of that character's interesting art design. Wow. That was a choice.
Year 1171, during the Insurrection of the Seven, an event we'll cover later. King Lambert married a woman named Anselma von Arundel, who had fled from the Empire. To conceal her ties as a former consort of Emperor Ionius IX, she adopted the alias Patricia, and their marriage was kept secret from the public. Anselma already had a child of her own, Edelgard von Hresvelg. Just a few short years after their marriage, Lambert would be assassinated during the tragedy of Dusker, a cataclysmic event that saw the murder of the royal family and a brutal massacre of those falsely accused of orchestrating the attack. Before these events, and prior to marrying
I wonder who falsely did or made that happen.
Patricia, Lambert had led a campaign to subjugate Sreng, a territory northeast of Fargus, alongside his close friend Rodrigue. In 1176, while on a diplomatic mission to the land of Duscur, Lambert and many of his companions, including Glenn, Rodrigue's first son, were killed. It was believed that Patricia perished as well, but her body was never found, and her carriage was left untouched. In time, the truth surfaced. Lambert's elder brother, Rufus, had been involved, along with Cornelia, who was revealed to be a member of those who slither in the dark. You see, those who slither had abducted Edelgard, or at least that's how Cornelia made it seem at first, and Patricia desperately begged Cornelia to release her. Cornelia told her there was only one way to ensure Edelgard's freedom: bring her the king's head. Cornelia had been...
Also, according to Cosmic, narratively, Dimitri's is one of the strongest routes. Shame he's just kinda eh. And to quote you, Dimitri's there, he sure does exist. Existingly, even.
deeply entangled in Patricia and Lambert's relationship, slowly manipulating Patricia and turning her against her husband. Behind it all, however, was Patricia's brother, Volkard von Arundel, or
That is a face. That is the face of someone you definitely want to trust with a knife behind you. There is no way that could ever go bad. Also, Eddie, I'm just going to pull up your comment quickly. When it loads. There we go. Airier, in July 2nd is my fave musical coming back. Would you react to it? With music, that's always probably a no. It's called The Guy Who Didn't Like Musicals, pretty please. Probably not, just because music is always very touchy on YouTube to do live. So I probably can't. It's always a risk. Unless that's someone who's explicitly okay with it, but we'd have to find out more at that point.
rather, the man who replaced him,
What?
Talus, the true leader of those who slither. He had murdered the real Volkard sometime during or shortly after his trip to the kingdom, brought Edelgard back to the Empire, and began horrific experiments on her. Not knowing the truth of what had really occurred in Duscur, Fargus carried out a massacre upon their people, believing them to be responsible for the king's death. In reality, they were framed.
Yeah. People working on insufficient information, making bad choices that later bite everyone else in the ass. This is so shocking. Also, Iron. The Slitherers suffer one of the worst parts of the Warhammer writing. Chaos did it! In other words, they are the plot device in case you need to figure out how to make things worse. Yeah, they are so incompetent and bad at being discreet that it's a giant mess. Yeah. And Cosmic. So I don't even mind that. I'm an Assassin's Creed fan, and the Templar do similar. Those who slither are just dull as dishwater. Oh, God.
Dimitri tried
Also, and Eddie, you mentioned it's no problem with music. It's okay. Oh, so it might be fine. I might add it to the list then.
to intervene during the slaughter, but in the end, he could only save to do. It seems that from the very beginning, the Blythed family was caught within the claws of those who slither in the dark. Even as the centuries passed, the connection could never truly be severed. What began with the 10 elites endured through generations, their influence lingering, unseen, yet ever present. At the time of the events of Three Houses, those who slither were still pulling the strings of the Blythed bloodline from the shadows. And that is the story of the Blythed family.
That's perfectly
We've covered
sane.
the key moments of the kingdom's history, its rise, its tragedies, and the dark threads binding it to the ancient war. Now let's turn our attention to House Regan, descendants of the Bow Knight, and the foundation of the Leicester Alliance.
Oh, that's supposed to be the main character. Sorry, I've only ever seen people use the female variation. I forgot there was a male variation of him. Huh. The more you know. Fodlan's history. The story of the deer? Oh, the symbol of the house. Okay.
So I mentioned the creststone weapons earlier, the relic-like weapons, but I didn't mention who crafted them. That would be Saint Macuil, who allied with Seiros during the War of Heroes. House Regan possesses a creststone weapon called Belgada. This may imply that, before or during the war, Regan, despite being one of the 10 elites, initially allied with Seiros before betraying her. It would be fascinating if that wit that Claude possesses was reflected in Regan himself, but in a more corrupt, twisted form. Skipping ahead, after the formation of the Holy Kingdom of Fargus, Regan's descendants intermarried with a progeny of King Lugh. Much like what happened before with the Kingdom of Fargus, nobles in the Leicester region rebelled against the Empire. The kingdom saw this as an opportunity, and proceeded to occupy and annex Leicester. In 861, 3 sons of the late King Claus I.
Those are names. Those are all names. You can tell it's definitely Germanic because it feels like if you have a chest cold, this is going to be easier to say.
Divided the kingdom among themselves, with one of those princes ruling Leicester as the Archduke. He passed away in 881, but the other nobles rejected his heir and launched a second bid for independence.
Also, is it bad that every time I hear the Reagan, I just keep thinking of Mob Psycho? It's not even related here. This is literally all I got. It's just in my head and I can't unsee it. Yeah.
Led by the Duke of Regan, who belonged to a cadet branch of the Blythed royal family. What followed became known as the Crescent Moon War, which brought destruction to both Fargus and Leicester for years. Eventually, in the year 901, both sides mutually disengaged, and the Leicester Alliance was formally founded as a republic of nobles.
And it worked? Sorry, I'm just getting Battletech vibes on this and just thinking about purple birds or something. I'm sure it's unrelated. Also, according to Cosmic in the chat, I'll pull up his comments so everyone else can see it quickly. When it eventually comes up. Here we go. Dimitri and his entire bloodline are basically the most unfortunate batch. The tragedy is that they're in the way of basically anything that isn't just the status quo. In Three Hopes, the Dynasty Warrior spinoff. Oh, that's what that was? I've heard of Three Hopes. I thought it was just a DLC, but no, it's a spinoff? He outright agrees with Edelgard. He just thinks she's moving too quickly. Kind of. It kind of worked. I mean, honestly, other than all the backhanded bullshit she did to make enemies of everyone, and a lot of the other bullshit, like, she's going about the right thing in the worst possible way possible. Possibly even.
Because Duke Regan played such a crucial role in securing the territory, and because his family, as an offshoot of the Blythed line, had historically led the nobles of the region, he was granted the responsibility of leading the lords of the Leicester Alliance from that point onward. Leadership of the Alliance would continue to pass down through the generations, eventually reaching Duke Oswald von Regan, who had 2 children, his heir Godfrey and his daughter Tiana. Unfortunately, Godfrey passed away in what was described as an accident. One must wonder what kind of accident this truly was.
I'm sure it's not. Actually, like, there's an entire bunch of random bullshit going on in this world already. If anyone says accent, I think if you're not initially going, of course, I don't know what you could possibly think, because it definitely wouldn't be that it wasn't an accent. That would never happen.
Though, for now, that remains speculation. With Oswald gravely ill and his son deceased, he would ultimately appoint his grandson as the next duke, the son of his daughter Tiana and the king of Elmira. To briefly touch on Elmira, it's a powerful nation located just beyond Fodlan's borders, directly connected to Leicester. Fodlan has clashed with Elmira before, most notably in 961, during an invasion at the mountain pass known as Fodlan's Throat. The attack was repelled thanks to a joint effort between the Empire and the Alliance. Following this, the Kingdom, Empire, and Alliance cooperated to construct the fortress known as Fodlan's Locket in 1101, built along the border to prevent future invasions. This violent history between the two nations is one of the main reasons Oswald's grandson, Khalid, had to change his name to Claude, concealing his Elmiran lineage from the rest of Fodlan.
Huh. So that's how he got his name. Actually, a cool little thing right there. Surprising that it works, but I guess if everyone who's in the know is in the know, it's a lot easier to hide something like that. Siren, I don't know what you're talking about Ash doing something accidental. I don't know what you're talking about. He does a lot of things accidentally on purpose. The story of the eagle. I'm not even going to try and say that. I'm tempted, though, but I know I'll butcher it.
Now we move on to the Empire. Many years after the War of Heroes and the death of the second emperor, Lycon I, the first Mach War broke out in 721. Dagda invaded the land of Mach, located in the north.
Oh, okay, that makes more sense. I wasn't sure if they meant Mach as in, we're making fun of you, or Mach as in, we're going really fast. Actually, that last part would have been really funny for a war.
Western region of Fodlan, The Imperial forces managed to repel the invasion, and then
Also, Cosmic, just to clarify, wow, I cannot speak today. For what Edelgard wanted. She wanted to outright end noble domination, a meritocratic system, crest ownership no longer denoting power, social mobility, and liberation of the church's control. Yep. And the way she went about it basically made sure no one sided with her who might have anyways. Again, I mean, part of that is everything else because of the fucking slithers. It's like she's doing the right thing wrong. It's like, I want to create a society of egalitarianism. So we just need to make sure everyone is under the boot of the state constantly, but only for a little bit. I'm literally describing the steps of communism as described by Karl Marx. Also, just to point out for anyone who didn't know this, the guy wrote for a living. He wrote a lot of theories for a living. A lot of them contradicted each other because he kept getting paid to write them. Yeah, people forget that part.
Response. The Empire conquered Dagda's ally, Brigid, in 728. In 731, the Empire attempted to invade Dagda itself, launching their attack through Brigid's territory. But the invasion ultimately failed. Centuries later, in 1175, Brigid was forced into vassalage, after both Dagda and Brigid jointly invaded the Empire and were defeated. As a token of loyalty and submission, Petra, the granddaughter of Brigid's king, was sent to live in the Empire.
Oh, so she's a princess. Again, I haven't played the games, mostly because I'm really bad at these. And I didn't have the DS at the time I think it came out. Also, I'm just going to pull up this comment because, Necro, it reminds you of the Forest of Women from Mubaseka? Is it Mubeska? Or Mobeska? I'm actually not sure how to say it. I've only ever read it. But yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, this is a franchise, Mobuseka, whatever, Mob, where it's basically making fun of Otome games by isekaiing in a main character into one of them. Or, except he's not a main character, he's a side character, he hates everything about it, he hates the game because he beat it, knows all the cheats, and it's all a hellscape that makes no sense because it's based on a game, not IRL politics. Except when you get an IRL of it, it comes down to the politics of, it sucks. The people in charge are not in charge. The people who want to be in charge don't realize the people in charge are not in charge, but they demand everything and they're just assholes. And it's a corrupt system. The only people who actually have any power are the ones who are willing to abandon everything because they don't know that they're not in power, so they act as if they do, and other people have to act as if, because everything else is on such a knife edge. If they do anything else, the entire system collapses. So the worst people get to do whatever they want because everyone else is picking up the pieces the entire time. That comes up later. And there's a lot of other bullshit in the background. It's a very interesting setting when you get into the details of it. Yeah, I actually quite like the setting. It was also written by someone who explicitly wrote as a deconstruction of the Isekai Otome. And then apparently he just did a good job at it to the point where even though it's a deconstruction, he accidentally did a real good job at showing the genre. And it became popular with the people he was initially mocking because he just was competent. And he was very surprised when he found out about that, which I just find hilarious. Yeah. Also, Cosmic 3 Houses of Mess, you love it? Honestly, I think you love it for the same reason I enjoy the lore about it.
We've already covered the rebellions of the Holy Kingdom and the Alliance, as well as the Almiran invasion, so we'll skip ahead to 1065, when an insurrection led by the Southern Church took place, though it was eventually quelled. The bishop who led the uprising was exiled. In response, the Empire established a Ministry of Religion under House Varley, ensuring a channel of control and diplomacy between the Empire and the Central Church. Another, even greater insurrection erupted in 1171. Not long after Ionis IX ascended the throne and his daughter, Edelgard, was born. The Insurrection of the Seven began as a direct response to the Emperor's attempts to consolidate power within the Adrestian Empire. His push for central authority enraged the nobility, and it was House Rim that struck first. In 1167, House Rim sought to secede from the Empire entirely, with plans to join the Leicester Alliance. With aid from their neighbors, House Ordelia, Rim raised their banner in rebellion. However, the Empire acted swiftly and...
Again, I gotta remind myself this is what the main character looked like as a guy. I just don't see people make that choice. Yeah. Also, Cosmic Gun to the Alliance is constantly infighting and screwing itself over. That couldn't be permitted if the church was going to be crushed. Yeah.
Brutally. The uprising was crushed, and House Rim's main bloodline was eradicated. A puppet head was installed to maintain appearance, that being Yuritsa, while House Airier quietly assumed true control of their lands behind the scenes. The ruthless suppression of House Rim sent a chilling message to the rest of Adrestia's nobility. Fearing that the Emperor would soon turn his sights on them, 6 of the Empire's most powerful houses formed an alliance to curtail Ionis IX's authority. Led by Duke Ludwig von Airier, they moved against the throne in 1171, stripping the Emperor of nearly all his power and reducing him to little more than a figurehead. From that point forward, Duke Airier effectively ruled the Empire, and the nobles who backed him used their newfound influence to enrich themselves at the expense of the realm. These events...
Yeah. If I had a nickel every time I've heard of the person in charge losing power because the people under them wanted more power and they got together to take more power, I'd have a lot of money, because that's almost every arc of nobility. Of, we follow the person in charge. They're not doing what we like. We follow our own meritocracy of just ourselves. Followed by, also get rid of the other people there because I want to be the one in charge now. Suckers. Yeah, that would be silly. It's like I just talked about something completely different from a completely unrelated setting that has the exact same type of plot line.
Left deep scars on Princess Edelgard, the Emperor's 9th daughter.
That is face.
When the insurrection broke out, her uncle, Lord Volkard von Arundel, a key ally of Duke Airier, took Edelgard to the Holy Kingdom of Fargus for her safety. They remained there until political turmoil began to settle. Her mother also fled to Fargus, unbeknownst to Edelgard. Taking the alias Patricia, she married King Lambert of Fargus. We went over all this earlier, but these events are all carefully intertwined. During her stay, Edelgard met and befriended the young Prince Dimitri. Neither knew that they were, in fact, step-siblings through Patricia's remarriage. Dimitri gifted Edelgard a dagger as a token of their friendship, a gesture that would later carry heavy emotional weight. Edelgard eventually returned to Adrestia in 1174, though her mother did not accompany her back. Unbeknownst to all during this time, Volkard had been secretly replaced by Talus, as we also discussed earlier. Under his command, the group began performing crest experiments on Edelgard and her siblings, with Duke Airier and his circle quietly approving these horrific acts. One by one, her siblings perished as a result of these experiments. Edelgard alone survived. The trauma of these experiments, combined with the corruption and betrayal of the noble class, forged within her a burning hatred for the rot that had consumed her homeland.
I mean, this part is still before she went too far, but yeah. Also, I'm being told by Cosmic Fortune Weaves being in Dagda relaxes you a bit. You're worried that it was going to screw with the ending of Three Houses? Oh. See, I don't know nearly enough about the upgrade, other than the fact that I just found out it exists right now.
Meanwhile, the aftermath of the insurrection left House Rim's territory in ruin. Duke Airier imposed brutal taxes on the surviving populace, forcing many to flee into neighboring lands, particularly the territory of House Ordelia. But even there, they found no refuge. The displaced were driven back to their broken homeland. Duke Airier concealed his mismanagement and cruelty from his son, Ferdinand, who remained unaware of the suffering his father's rule had caused. The crest experiments conducted by those who slither were not limited to Edelgard alone. They also targeted Lysithea of House Ordelia. She was implanted with a second crest during the experiments, but the toll was immense. Her hair turned white, her body weakened, and her lifespan was drastically shortened. In a rather grim sense, Lysithea walked so Edelgard could run. The failures of those experiments on Lysithea paved the way for their success with Edelgard. While Edelgard's...
Why did they put that in quotations? I'm assuming there's other batch I just didn't know about then.
body was still affected, her hair turning the same stark white, she alone was able to withstand bearing two crests, one of them being the crest of flames. The very same...
Nah, I'm pretty sure no one would ever bring that up. I wonder if they brought that in before or after they realized she's right.
Once born by Nemesis himself.
A Flaming Emblem. Nah. Story of the Dragon. The church always felt weird. Like, I feel like them as the ultimate bad guys makes a lot of sense, but also because they're not incredibly evil. They've just done horrible things, but they've done horrible things for reasons that make sense based on basically looking at it going, I hate all of you, but I'm not going to kill all of you. Fuck. Yeah, kind of like that.
We've now covered the 3 major houses and their lineages. Sure, I could go over every single elite's family history,
All
but
of them? Jeez.
let's be honest, this video is already packed with information as it is. I'll leave that for a potential sequel, if I ever decide to do one. For now, I just want to focus on the most important parts of Fodlan's history, enough for you to grasp the big picture without being overwhelmed. With that said, let's talk about the church next, and what became of Seiros after the War of Heroes. As we already know, the church itself was founded before both the War of Heroes and the Adrestian Empire by Seiros herself.
Yep.
There are several branches of the church across all.
I'll give him this. It's a good art style. And I don't just mean that in the sense that, hot chick, but more, it actually is very much the flowing armor that fits around it. It doesn't look incredibly puffy, but at the same time, you can see the armor around here where they have the aspects that just look really thematic. It looks like a dragoon. Again, the headpiece. And also I realized the reason she doesn't actually need the armor is because is dragon. But no one else knew that. It just looks incredibly cool. Also, iron. I can basically side with every ... Lord and Rhea. And they still suck. And still they suck. Yeah, they do. I like it because of that. And Cosmic mentioned you have no hatred for the Alliance, though. Easily your second choice. There not being a golden path is the point. Yep. Although I do dislike how they had a golden path and then they made sure that Edelgard's route was followed by so much corruption that she perpetrated that you couldn't actually align with it because it's kind of the worst. Because even if it's good, it isn't.
Of Fodlan, the central church, overseen by Archbishop Seiros, which governs all others. The Eastern Church, which currently operates within the Alliance, the Western Church, located in the Holy Kingdom, and the Southern Church, which was disbanded after the first major insurrection we mentioned earlier. In its place now stands the Ministry of Religion. The Knights of Seiros, the church's military division, often lent aid to each territory, but they act independently, separate from the 3 nations. The church as a whole serves this mediating role across Fodlan, functioning as both a religious and political balance of power. In Imperial Year 185, Garrick Mach Monastery was completed, itself part of the Central Church. Centuries later, around the year 980, the Officers' Academy was established within its walls, serving as a school for the youth of all 3 nations. Depending on your nationality, you'd be placed into one of 3 houses: the Blue Lions, the Black Eagles, or the Golden Deer. It was a place for both nobles and commoners alike, though, given the steep cost of enrollment, it naturally leaned heavily toward the nobility.
Because if you're rich enough to afford getting in here, you've already won. Also because you don't have to be directly involved in their bullshit, but chances are if you have that much money, you're directly involved in their bullshit.
But let's rewind a bit. Back to the year 185, when the monastery was first founded. Seiros, still burdened by the loss of her mother, the goddess slain by the Agarthans, sought a way to bring her back, gathering her most devoted followers, those gifted in mystic arts and ancient blood rituals, and perhaps Nabateans themselves, though that's uncertain, it's just speculation.
See, that would make this fascinating if they were dealing with the people they hated most to get what they wanted.
She tasked them with resurrecting the goddess. This ritual became known as the Rite of Rising. To perform it, they used a sacred artifact known as the Chalice of Beginnings, along with their own blood, in an attempt to revive the progenitor god.
Also, I just want to point out, even in the art right here, you could see something. There's just that little bit of bone right here. It might be in here too, but covered over and gilded. But right here is still definitively bone.
God. Unfortunately, the ritual failed, and the chalice was sealed underground. Burdened by their failure, the 4 apostles, those who had conducted the rite, departed from the church and scattered across Fodlan in self-exile. Noah fled to the ocean, settling in what would later become the Nouvelle territory within the Empire. Chevalier, listen, I had to pronounce those German names earlier. I'm not even going to look this one up, alright?
Chevalier? Isn't that a French word? Also, Cosby, it's almost like the church did this so they can manipulate the ability of multiple nations when they were children to ensure compliance. Yeah, easily.
I'm just going to wing it. Exiled himself to the far eastern.
But also, I mean, that's not unusual. That's like what a lot of just apprenticeship was for nobility. Like, one of the places that does this the most accurately in fiction is George Martin with Game of Thrones, in the sense that you would essentially hostage one of your kids to another noble and they teach them, because then they build ties with them and don't fuck with you, is what the thought process behind it is. I mean, unless, you're an absolute psychopath and you got more kids, you don't care about the one that's not there, or the ones you do have, because I don't want to fuck everyone over. I'm very much making a reference to exactly who you think I am right now.
Mountains, the region that would one day be part of the Alliance. Eventually, the village of Kupala would form there. Timotheus settled in a village hidden deep within a forest, one that would later bear his name. He was said to possess a strange gift, the ability to summon animals with just a sigh, strangely enough. Finally, Aubin retreated underground, into a place we now know as the Abyss. Why did they leave, you might ask? Well, they didn't just fail, it was a colossal failure. The first time they attempted the rite, it didn't simply fizzle out, it backfired. An umbral beast was summoned, born from the chalice and the blood of the apostles. Much like the demonic beasts, it was a corruption of Nabatean blood, a twisted reflection of what they were trying to bring back.
Dragon.
But Seiros didn't stop after this failure. Despite all the wars, invasions, and insurrections raging across Fodlan, much of her time was still spent experimenting.
And this is why I think she's fascinating, because the church doesn't feel like the controlling hand. It feels like they're controlling it as much as they can while focusing on it almost not at all. It's like the fucking idiots are doing something again. They're fucking it up without realizing they're fucking it up. Like, that's my impression of them, at least from what I've seen. There's moments like this. It's like, it's not their goal. They're just ignoring everything.
It's unclear exactly what she did to conduct these experiments.
Also, it's called fostering, except hostages are unwilling. It's debatable, because a lot of the times, though, the foster was very much a hostage. It's just the kid might not be aware of it. Yeah. And Cosmic hate feudalism quite vehemently? Oh, hell yes. Horrible system. Utterly idiotic. And it prompts whoever can grab power to just abuse it the most thoroughly, because nothing has value except being at the top, including the person at the top not always being at the top, because that prompts or makes sure that you have to then be aware of everyone under you trying to backstab you, because there's no downside to backstabbing, because if you win, then there's no downside because you have all the power. Again, feudalism is horrible and stupid and very, very self-destructive. People just like to romanticize it because every now and again, a good leader came up who didn't fuck it up. Usually followed promptly by someone taking that goodwill and abusing it for stupid, self-aggrandizing means and fucking it up.
But her goal was singular, to create vessels, new bodies for the goddess to inhabit. Another possible way to revive her mother, or at least so she thought. There were 12 vessels in total, created over the span of 1,000 years. Each had their own life, their own personality. Ironic, isn't it? In trying to resurrect her goddess, Seiros herself was trying to play God. I should probably stop calling her that name, huh? You see, Seiros isn't actually her name. At some point, she started calling herself Rhea, yet another name. And with that came a rewriting of Fodlan's history. She lied about much of what happened during the War of Heroes, and the events that came before it. Even the truth behind the relics was buried in shadow. Rhea crafted a false tale that
Yep. Also, Iron mentioned she neglected so much, which made it worse. Yeah, but oddly enough, like, I know functionally that's horrible. From a storytelling perspective, it's actually why I like the church, because it shows the not actively malicious, but very much the villain aspect of them, because they're not evil because they're trying to evil, like the Slitherers, which is just disappointing because they have such a great line to have been the actual good guys who fucked up even harder than Edelgard, because they were technically right. But Rhea being the villain out of incompetence, because it wasn't her focus, so she never tried. Like, they're doing everything. I like it because they're a good non-standard villain. That personal opinion, at least.
To Nemesis and his band of elites as heroes. Why? Well, it was to protect herself and the other Nabateans, few as they were, who still lived in Fodlan. And honestly, I'm sure she didn't want anyone else repeating the mistakes of those who dwelled beneath the earth.
Or, you know, learning that certain people with green hair might have very interesting bones that make money. Sorry, I mean power.
Many in Fodlan did view Nemesis as a hero, after all. He did stop the invasions threatening their lands. So, Rhea had to come up with a lie that was believable. That's where the story we hear in the game comes from. The one claiming that the relics were gifts from the goddess herself, only for Nemesis to eventually go corrupt and be defeated. Was Rhea her real name before all of this? It definitely wasn't Seiros, and honestly, who knows if that's even the truth either. Maybe we'll never know what her original name was. Anyway, back to the whole human experimentation thing.
Know who would.
Eventually, Rhea, Seiros, this chick, she created Citri like the others by implanting the crest of Sothis within her. This experiment failed too, but Rhea and Citri grew close over time. Citri later met a man named Gerald, and the two fell in love. They had a child together, but when the baby was born, it was weak. It wasn't expected to live long. To save her child, Citri made one final request, that the crest stone be implanted within the baby instead. It was her dying wish. Rhea agreed, and through that act, the child was revived. The name they gave the child was Byleth.
Yep. And the irony is, depending on which route you take, Rhea made her own downfall. Although downfall still, I mean, the process kind of fucked up and failed until she succeeded, because, I mean, the god technically came back. Sort of. I'm not actually sure how physical that was. I don't think it was at all. Yeah, whatever. I need to play this game one of these days, just because I love so much about it. I love so much of the lore. I love the music. The music is so freaking good. But I've just never really got around to it. Mostly because I don't have any understanding of emulators. That hasn't been me fucking with technology and then having it bork something and having to reset my entire PC. Funny how that would happen when I have no tech ability. But yeah, they have such a good story here. I think they tried to do a Fire Emblem game that didn't have 3 houses in the background, and it just didn't do as well because they built such an engaging world that I think they just kind of hit their main universe without realizing it how many games in. Or at least that's what it looks like from the outside. I would love to know what other people's thoughts. So if you have any comments down below when this video goes live, hit me up. I'll see you guys in the next one. Oh, and again, links below video. Hit it up as well. I'll see you then. Adios.